right? Shalom. Yeah, man, these devils, man, they got I don't know what their problem is, but they getting seeing it out here, man. But nonetheless, it's all right. We're gonna continue the edification, you know. It ain't gonna stop the spirit, all right. But so going back into it, all right, dealing with Daniel, yeah, these devils, man. Dealing with Second Esdras chapter 12 and where were we? Verse 11. It's like, let me just make sure the link is up in here. All right. So so dealing with Second Esdras chapter 12 verse 11. So the fourth beast, right? Like I was saying, the fourth beast is synonymous with the eagle that Ezra saw. And here is being broken down that it is a kingdom. The Catholic Church is not a kingdom. All right. Catholicism is a religion. Okay. And the Catholic Church is not a kingdom. Okay. It's not a kingdom of its own. Okay. And then verse 12 says, I'm going to read it again. Second Esdras chapter 12, verse 11. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. But it was not expounded unto him. Therefore now I declare it unto thee. Behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. So please tell me, when in history was this in terms of the Catholic Church? When the Catholic Church came into power that it was feared above all kingdoms? Okay. It says here, and then it says, verse 14, it gets even better. It says, in the same, meaning in this same kingdom, shall 12 kings reign. And when you go to Second Esdras 11, those 12 feathers now is telling you here that those 12 feathers represent 12 kings. All right. We know them as emperors, from Julius Caesar to Augustus Caesar to Tiberius Caesar to Caligula Caesar to Claudius Caesar to Nero to Galba to Otho to Vitellius to Vespasian to Titus and Domitian. Those are the 12 Caesars, or the 12 kings. And it says that they were going to reign one after another. It says, wherefore the second shall begin to reign and shall have more time than any of the 12. And when you go into the history, that's dealing with Augustus Caesar, which he reigned the longest out of all the 12 Caesars. So now, who are the 12 kings of the Catholic Church? You got different popes, but who are the two? Are they the first 12 popes? You know, who are the 12 kings of the Catholic Church, and who is the second king of the Catholic Church that had the reign longer than anybody else? And it had to be the second king too. Okay, it doesn't make sense. All right, it doesn't make sense. When you go into Daniel 7, the fourth beast is dealing with a kingdom, and that's talking about the Roman Empire. Okay, the Roman Empire. So now we've addressed that. Now let's deal with the little horn that came from this fourth beast. All right, so it says here at the latter part of Daniel 7:7, it says, and it had 10 horns, which we listed the horns, right? Now we're going to get a little bit more specific with those horns. Okay, because in verse 8 it says, I considered the horns, and behold, now those horns are listed their ancient names. But check this out. The 7 heads are still the same heads today. France is still here today. Okay, they were known as Gauls or the Franks, but they're still here today. Hispania is still here today as Spain. Okay, Britannia is still here today as the UK, Britain. Okay, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Germany. Okay, Rome, Italy, they're still here today. Back then, they were known by different names, but in this time, in this day and age, they're known by different names, but they're still here. Same thing with the 10 horns. You had the Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Anglo-Saxons. They're all here today as the European Union, just going by different names. Some of them still have similar names, but now they have more modern names. Okay, so keep that in mind. So in Daniel 7 and 8, Daniel says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them, among those horns, those 10 horns, another little horn. So this little horn came from the 10 horns. And it says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, it in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, this little horn that came up from the 10, it says, there came up another little horn. This little horn it started off, the reason it was called a little horn, all right, because this was the beginning or the birth of America. At the time, it was known as the 13 colonies. And that's why it was a little horn, because they were little. Okay. And who did the 13 colonies come from? Britain. Okay. The 13 colonies came from Britain, right? Now, how is Britain a part of the horns? Well, as I listed in the 10 horns, you had the Anglo-Saxons. Okay. And that's where let me actually put it up in here. Anglo-Saxon. Let's see what they give us. All right, but that's basically where you get Britain today, because that same land, all right, where the Anglo-Saxons were at, okay, that Britannia area is the same area, okay, that you have Britain from today. Okay, it's the same people, same land, just called by different names. Let's see if I can filter through this. Yeah, all right. So let's see. All right, it says Anglo-Saxon England was early medieval England, existing from the 5th to the 11th centuries, from the end of the Roman Britain until the Norman conquest in 1066. Okay. It says the Anglo-Saxons were the members of Germanic-speaking groups who migrated to the southern half of the island of Great Britain from nearby northwestern Europe. So the landmass where the Anglo-Saxons were at today is Britain, UK, England. Okay. So the Anglo-Saxons would be that horn. All right. Their ancient name is the Anglo-Saxons. Modern name, Britain, UK, England. Okay. And it was from them that the little horn, which is America, came from. So when you go into Daniel 7, the little horn that came up from the other horns, the little horn is the 13 colonies, and it came up from the horn, which is known as the Anglo-Saxons, aka Britain. And now it says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So that means before this little horn, all right. Now, before doesn't mean time period as in before, it came before, but it means in the face of or in the presence of. So in the presence of this little horn, which were the 13 colonies, there were 3 of the first horns. So 3 horns from those 10 horns that were listed were plucked up by the roots. And what this is going into are the 3 main wars that you had between the 13 colonies or America and these 3 horns. And these 3 horns today are the French, the British, and the Spanish. Okay, the French, the British, and the Spanish. Now, when you go back to their ancient names, the French were known as the Franks. Okay, which was one of the names I listed as the 10 horns, the Franks. Okay, you had Spain, which were the Visigoths. Okay, and then you had Britain, which was the Anglo-Saxons. So these three horns, right? The Franks, the Anglo-Saxons, and the Visigoths, okay, today are known as the French, England or Britain, and Spain. So yes, those are the 3 horns. And when you go into it, you had the French and Indian War, which is basically the war between, I'm going to read it here. It says, this is from Wikipedia. It says, French and Indian War. The French and Indian War pitted the colonies of British America against those of New France, right? British America. America would be the little horn. Britain would be part of the 10 horns, and France would also be one of those 10 horns. So when you go into Daniel 7, what it means by it plucked them up by the roots, is because the French, the Spanish, and the British, when they came here to the Americas, we know you have the conquistadors, the Spanish, Christopher Columbus and Cortez and all these different people. It wasn't just the Spaniards that came here. You had the British that came here. You had the French that came here. And what they came to the Americas to do was to colonize. They came to colonize this land here, okay, the Americas. And that means they came to plant their roots in here. All right, a colony is like a root of a bigger, country. So they came to plant their roots in here and expand and grow, all right, in this land. But the Lord didn't have it that way. The Lord had it to where you had the 13 colonies that went to war with these different countries, these three of the old horns, and defeated them. And in doing so, they uprooted them out of the land and had them basically come back, to the east, to Europe and so on and so forth. And then the 13 colonies grew into what you have as America today. Okay, so it basically kicked them out and then grew and took the whole joint. All right, so that's what it means by the 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots, meaning those 3 different wars: the French-American War, the Spanish-American War, and the American Revolutionary War, was the war between 13 colonies, or America and Britain. All right, the American Revolutionary War. Then you had the 13 colonies or America and Spain, which was the French-American War, and then America and France. All right, Slovakia, America and Spain, which is the Spanish-American War, and then America and France, which was the French-American War. And these were the wars between the little horn and those 3 of the first horns. And that's how they were plucked up. Okay. It says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, when you go into, which I have here as well, the book of Revelation, because what you'll find out is these are, the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, the book of 2nd Esdras, and all these books that go into like the prophecies pertaining mainly to the beast or to the different empires, they're really the same thing. They're the same thing, written different ways, seen different ways, described different ways, but it's the same thing. Daniel saw it as a little horn, as John saw it as a woman. Okay, it's the same thing, because America is still America, regardless of what it was described as. It's this time that we're living in. It's not going to change. It's still the same time that they all saw, but they all saw it in different ways. So now, lastly, I have here Revelation chapter 17. Okay, dealing with verse 9. It says, and it's similar to Daniel 7, dealing with the little horn that came from the 10 horns. Well, here you have Revelation 17 and 9. It says, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, which represent governments. Okay, like I listed before, the Greeks, Rome, the Spanish, the French, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britannia. Okay. Now it says, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is. Okay. So now, dealing with this vision that that John saw at the time when John was alive, okay, and he was exiled to that island of Patmos, the 5 kings are synonymous, or the 5 or the 7 kings, however you want to call them, are synonymous with those 7 mountains, which are synonymous with the 7 heads. Okay. Now it says 5 of them are fallen. Okay. So you had the Greeks, you had the French, you had the Spanish, you had Germanium Major, and you had Germanium Minor. These were the 5 that were fallen. Okay, it says one is, and the one that was Rome, and it was because who do you think exiled John to the island of Patmos? Rome, right? It was a Roman emperor, and I believe it was Domitian. It says, and one is, so that was Rome. It says, and the other is not yet come. Okay, and that was basically the British Empire, or England, all right, as an empire, like as for some point, some period in time, after Rome fell, Britain was a superpower that had ruled for a short period of time, but they were still a power, a force. Okay, so it says, and the other is not yet come, and that's who it's talking about. Okay, Britain. It says, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space, because they didn't rule for that long. But the key point here says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. Now you're gonna see, you might see that, you're like, whoa, what? The beast, the who? He was, he wasn't, what did he do? Now, the beast that was that first beast, okay, the Roman Empire. It says the beast that was and is not, because the Roman Empire at one point existed, it was there, but then it went down. So that's the part where it says and is not. And then it says, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th. So now let's put the 8th aside for now. Let's just deal with the 7th. Remember, 5 were fallen, 1 is, and the other was yet to come. So the other that was yet to come, being Britain, was the 7th. Okay, and then it says, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th, meaning of the 7th of Britain. You were going to have another kingdom that was going to come from Britain. Okay, and this kingdom was going to be that first beast, meaning it was going to be a reincarnation of the first beast. Okay, it says, and goeth into perdition, meaning it's going to be destroyed. So put this all together in layman's terms. It's saying that you had the Roman Empire that was, okay, and then the Roman Empire went down, and then you're going to have the 8th, which is America, okay, and that America is going to come from Britain, which is the 7th. But America's going to come, America's going to grow, is going to be the heart of this system today, but then it's going to be destroyed. It's going to go into perdition. So just like in Daniel 7, we hear about the little horn that came from the 10. In Revelation 17 is likened onto the 8th, which came from the 7th. And either way, it's America, all right, from Britain. Okay, now America is Babylon, okay, but you have the beast, which is the heart of the beast, all right, is America, or is Babylon. Just like you have the Roman Empire, where you had Rome itself, but then you also had the Roman Empire, which consisted of other governments, but you also had Rome itself, the city that was the heart of the Roman Empire. So today you have NATO and the EU, okay, but it's really ran, all right, at the woman that's sitting on it and controlling it is America, okay. So I know that was a little complicated, but hey, that's why really a lot of people stumble at it, because it's not impossible, it's the truth, and the breakdowns are there. But number one, you got people that get stopped by pride, but number two, the lack of diligence. I gotta go look up which kingdom, Britain. How does that come in? I thought it was Britannia, and they don't want to do the work to look it over and study it. But the scriptures talk about studying to show yourself approved. Certain prophecies, certain things, you got to go into history and this, then the third to understand. But what you're showing while doing that is you're showing the Most High that, look, I understand that this is, extensive research, but I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to study to show that to you that I am worthy, or I'm qualified to teach your word. That's why it says, as a matter of fact, I'm going to close it off with that in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. All right, it says that study to show thyself approved unto the Most High. It's not study so you could go show off to people. Oh, that's how deep I am, bro. Let me spit this to you. Boom, 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 boom. You know what I'm saying? Cut you left and right. Even though you're good, I'm gonna still just cut you because I want to flex my sword. That's not what it's for. It says study to show yourself approved to the Most High. Why is that? Who do you need to be approved by? The Most High. Because it's his word that you're teaching. So you got to study to show the Most High that you're approved, you know, that you're qualified, a workman that can teach the word of the Lord. And it says a workman that needeth not be ashamed, or needeth not to be ashamed. Because if you don't study and then you go and say something wrong, there's obviously going to be somebody that the Most High is going to raise up to reprove you and put it out on the spotlight. And you're going to be ashamed because what you said was incorrect. And that shows that you didn't study it. Okay? So you don't need to be ashamed if you study and you learn the correct breakdowns and the correct information concerning the scriptures. And it shows the Lord that you take his word seriously. Because if you take it seriously, you're going to put in the work to learn it, or you're just not going to even come close to it at all. It says rightly dividing the word of truth, meaning you're teaching the word correctly. Okay. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here. All right. Yep. Simple, plain. You know, Lord willing, that was edifying unto the elect. You know, these devils cut. You know, they got me a little heated, but they cut the stream and everything. But hey, this, as the scriptures say, you can do nothing against the truth, only for the truth. You know, so as long as edification went out, then you know the job is done. All right. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachah Kudash. Until next time, Shalom.